Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. My name is Alan and I'm one of the verbal trainers in the Kenya Airlift program. In today's video, we are going to be covering sentence correction and specifically subjunctives. What is the subjunctive? The subjunctive is a verb form that is used to express possibilities, give recommendations, or explore hypothetical situations. So we are going, of course, to look at examples of the subjunctive in the next slide. It is one of the three modes that are used in the English language, with the other two being the indicative mood and the imperative mood. So the indicative mood is commonly is the most commonly used mood form, and the verb form expresses facts, opinion, and is used to ask questions. For example, in this sentence, Linda will finish the assignment in the afternoon and go to the park. So this just used to make express statements. It doesn't express any conditions, or it doesn't express any conditions that are expected of Linda in this case. In the imperative mood, the verb form is used to express commands. For example, Linda must finish the assignment by the afternoon for her to go to the park. And then in the subjunctive mood, the verb form is used to express possibilities, to explore condition or imaginary situations. For example, if Linda has to finish the assignment by the afternoon, she will go to the park. As you can see in this example, the subjunctive mood is markedly different from the other two moods. That's the indicative and the imperative mood, in the permutations that the verb form takes, and we're going to explore these in the upcoming slides. So we now look at the uses of the subjunctive mood. Firstly, the subjunctive is used to convey an idea that is contrary to fact. So in this case, the plural form of the verb is used whether the subject is singular or plural, as we saw in the previous example and as well in the upcoming example. And also be aware of the evil construction in the GMAT, which is a subjunctive trigger. For example, I wouldn't do that if I were you. As you can see in this particular example, let me annotate just to illustrate what I'm talking about. I wouldn't do that. The subjunctive triggers here, the would and the were are underlined. So of course, in the second point, we said that the subjunctive takes a very specific format when the verb were is used in it, and that it uses the conditional verb if. I wouldn't do that, and then at the end of it, the were is used at the end of that particular structure. So in the second example, you can also see that as well. If the game were to end in a tie, the home team will become the champ. So again, you can see the structure here manifesting itself, the if were structure. And of course, then in the conditional form of it is would, as used in both examples. So also note that some constructions don't take the if would construction. For example, he asked that they try the cake. So in this case, these are present tense conjunctive, subjunctive. Or rather, it's a past tense subjunctive. He asked that they try the cake. That's in the past tense. In the second one, I wish I were on holiday right now. So again, you can see the particular structure. In this case, there's no if used in the sentence, but the verb takes the plural nonetheless. So the first law is supreme in this case, that the verb has to take the plural form, and then the evil structure only appears in some scenarios as explained. So moving on. It's important to note that it's not every time that the nature of information is a subjunctive. The nature of information is a subjunctive when if is used, for example, and that indicates that if doesn't always introduce the subjunctive. Many if clauses set out conditions related to fact and reality rather than hypothesis, and therefore take the indicative mood. So for example, if the party is interesting, we will stay longer than 15 minutes. So that's not a condition. Of course, there's a condition in there, but it's not a subjunctive. So not all conditions are subjunctives, basically. So, and the last point, it is important to understand the meaning of the sentence and knowing the rules so that you don't apply them blanketly, even where they are not supposed to be applied. Another use of the subjunctive to convey a hypothetical idea. So in this case, if you want to express a wish or hypothesis, the plural form of the verb is used. For example, I wish I were a king. So of course, that's a hypothesis. The author or the speaker in this case is not a king, but they're wishing that they were. So in that case, the verb was, instead of saying, I wish I was a king, you say, I wish I were a king. So also take note of the nature of the sentence. It expresses something that's not a reality. Again, that's a hypothesis. And also there are the examples there. The space scientists speculate that magic particle exists. So the first form is wrong. You're supposed to use the plural form of that verb. And of course, most of our students usually have a problem with the forms of verbs that take S when they're in the singular and drop that particular S when they're in the plural. So for example, if you were to say he goes to the market every day, so in that case the verb go takes the ES form, but in the plural it drops the ES form. For example, they go to the market every day. So kindly note of those permutations when it comes to the plural of words. So again, we continue the discussion on the uses of the subjunctive. It's also used when issuing commands, orders, or requests. So when a sentence issues a command, order, or request, the subjunctive pairs the verb expressing the order or demand with the word that and uses the bare infinitive form of that particular verb. So of course, that's a lot of jargon, but let's see it in application. So the manager requested that the staff stay late to finish the project. Of course, maybe through normal intuition or in normative conversations, somebody would say the manager requested that the staff should stay late or to stay late to finish the job, but the helping verb there is dropped. So then you have the bare infinitive form of the main verb. So in the second example, the princess demanded that the frog be brought to her. Again, the to is dropped, and so that remains in the bare infinitive form. In the last example, the teacher asked Jack that he recite the poem. Again, you can see the verb recite takes the plural form.
You're watching Success with Bob Mwiti show presented to you by AppstecAmerica. AppstecAmerica is a consulting company that helps immigrants find amazing higher education and job opportunities in the tech industry in the United States. You can find our programs by going to www.appstecamerica.com. AppstecAmerica, we wake you up to the unlimited potential within you.
So let's identify the different subjunctive triggers that exist. So in the previous examples, we identified the if-were structure that's critical to some of these subjunctive statements. So, and that's what is identified in point number 1 here, the if-were construction. So this specifically refers to information that's contrary to facts as well as hypotheses, as we identified earlier. So a second structure uses the bossy verb plus the verb to be in the construction, and then also another structure uses the bossy verb plus that in the construction. So we're going to be seeing some of these examples very soon. So the second and third structures are for suggesting command, demand, suggestion, and necessity. So wishful verbs are also used in some instances. For example, if someone is expressing a wish or maybe a desire, that would also qualify as a subjunctive. And the verbs that would be used in that case will be wish, hope, assume, or hypothesize. The bossy verbs include command, demand, recommend, suggest, order, require, need, expect, request, etc. And those are used with that. So subjunctive sentence structures are as follows. So if I said it can be used to the plural form of the verb. For example, if I were you, I wouldn't take the test, something of the sort. Or in this case, if I were the president, politics would be cleaner. So of course, the verb was takes the plural form, as in this case. In the second construction, we have the subject plus the bossy verb plus that plus the base form of the verb. For example, the judge ordered that the cop take the accused away. So of course, bossy verb here is ordered, and then that is used in the sentence as well. Then the base form of take is used here as well. So in the that construction, you have the subject plus the bossy verb plus that plus something to be done. For example, the judge ordered that the accused be taken away. So of course, once again, we have the bossy verb, which is ordered here. Then that is used in the sentence. And then the something to be done is for this particular subject to be taken away. So let's look at a couple of examples so that we can be able to understand this topic in a more clear way. So you can take a minute, try to answer these, pause your video, and then come back and see if you got it right. So just take a minute and pause your video and come back. So I hope you've gotten it right, or you've understood what's going here. So I'll just go through it for your understanding. So the budget for education reflects the administration's demand that the money is controlled. So of course, as mentioned earlier, you have to look at the auxiliary verb used, or the verb used in the particular sentence. In this case, the verb is. And then you ask yourself if the subjunctive, first you have to identify the subjunctive trigger. In this case, the subjunctive trigger here is demand, because then it is expressing a demand, which qualifies to be a subjunctive. And so the verb of the sentence has to be transformed first into the plural, and in this case has to take the verb to be. So the budget for education reflects the administration's demand that the money is controlled by the local school districts, but can only be spent on teachers, not on books, computers, or other materials or activities. So with that in mind, now you can look at the answer choices and see which one assumes the right subjunctive structure. So A says the money is controlled by, of course, A is always a replica or a repetition of the question as it is. So, and as we've discussed before, A is incorrect because it doesn't follow the rules of the subjunctive. It uses the verb is here, which is not the correct form of the subjunctive. As we said before, you have to use the verb to be in this kind of situation. So, and if you have if, then it has to be followed by wa. That is if the sentence qualifies to be a subjunctive. And by qualifying to be a subjunctive, we go back again to the subjunctive triggers. In this case, it's the word demand up there. So B says, of course, you have to put it in the context of the entire sentence for you to understand it. The budget for education reflects the administration's demand that the money be controlled. Of course, that does correct the issue with the subjunctive, or the issue with the verb, that the money be controlled by local school districts, but it allows them to spend the money only on teachers, not on books, computers, or other materials or activities. So you can keep B for consideration because it has the right subjunctive structure. C says that the money is to be controlled. So C violates the subjunctive structure by maintaining the verb is here. So C is incorrect. So you can, of course, cross out the ones that you deem to be incorrect. D says the budget for education reflects the administration's demand that the local school districts are in control. Again, it doesn't bring out the right subjunctive structure, uses the wrong verb form. It says the local school districts are to be in control. Of course, it maintains the verb are here, which is the incorrect form of that particular verb. So by a process of elimination, then your answer will remain to be B. That the money, the budget for education reflects the administration's demand that the money be controlled by local school districts, but it allows them to spend the money only on teachers, not on books, computers, or other materials or activities. So I hope that's clear. We can look at another example just to reinforce your understanding, and I'm sure you'll get the topic more clearly after that. So the second example reads, after the capital fell in an action that would end the 300-year rule of the Romanovs, Tsar Nicholas II finally heeded his remaining advisors, recommending that he should abdicate. So again, the first task or your first task will be to look for the subjunctive trigger. So in this case, the subjunctive trigger here is the word recommending, because as I said, recommendations, commands, advice, it all qualifies as a subjunctive. And then now your second task will be, what is the form of the verb here, or what is the verb form used? And in this case, so recommending is the verb, is the subjunctive trigger, as well as the verb form that is supposed to be transformed in the case of a subjunctive. So you can look through the answer choices and see which one takes the right subjunctive form. So A says recommending that he should abdicate. So in most cases, the verbs in the subjunctive form, they take the simple present tense. If of course the action is in the simple present, I mean, is in the present tense. In this case, of course, the main action is taking place in the past, but the main verb is in the present continuous tense. So that's the incorrect form of that verb. The verb should be in the simple present tense. And of course, at some point, it does get confusing for students, or you might ask, well, this is an action that took place in the past. How comes the verb is in the present tense? What we call it, there's usually that transposition of verbs, actions that take place at a particular point in the past. So in this case, the recommendation by Sir Nicholas's advisors took place. Now you assume that's the present of the past. So it's like an action that's going on at a particular point in the past. And that's why we are using the present tense, but it's the present of the past in this case. So since the verb here doesn't take the present simple tense, you can eliminate it. B says recommending him to abdicate. Again, takes the continuous form of that particular verb, you can eliminate it. C says who recommended that he abdicates. So that C is okay. I mean, C is okay in correcting the form of the first verb, but then again, there's the issue of the second verb in the sentence here. And as said, as per the rules of the subjunctive, the verb should be in the plural form, which is not the case here. So by that particular rule, C is incorrect. D says who recommended that he abdicate. D is okay. It obeys all the rules of the subjunctive, so you can keep D. E says who recommended him to abdicate. So the problem with E, and it goes back now to the rule of the subjunctive, where we said that the subjunctive takes the bare infinitive form. So if it takes the bare infinitive form, then we don't expect it to have the verb to. And in this case, this has the verb to there, so it's incorrect by that particular rule. The same case for B here. It also, while maintaining the present continuous tense of that particular verb, it also does not drop the infinitive to here. So in this case, your answer will be D. If you put it in context, or rather when you come to the right answer, you can put it in the context of the sentence, just to make sure that you've got it right. So after the capital L in an action that would end the 300-year rule of the Romanovs, Sir Nicholas II finally heeded his remaining advisors, who recommended that he abdicate. And of course, given that there is a comma here, then this brings out the whole aspect of modifiers that we spoke about in an earlier video. Here, what you have is a noun modifier, which is signified by the pronoun who here. So, and as we discussed in that earlier video, we said that noun modifiers are always offset by a comma. So if you have a comma here, then you know that whatever modifier comes after the comma should be a noun modifier. In essence, it should refer back to a particular noun, which is the case in D. And also that particular rule can also help you to eliminate A and B, which are already eliminated by other criteria earlier. So this is all the tough one. I hope you guys got it. At the end of my presentation, so I can recommend you other resources where you can read more on the subjunctive, as well as other sentence correction topics. This includes the verbal foundations by Manhattan Review, GMAT, the verbal by Manhattan Review as well, and also the Princeton Review. Feel free to join us in our Kenya Airlift program, GMAT training program. which runs every month. So kindly sign up with Kenya Airlift program and get an opportunity to train with us. Thank you.
You've been watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, brought to you by AppstecAmerica. Come back next time to hear more steps and missteps that I took on the path to becoming a successful immigrant in USA. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.